Another distinguished guest, my friend David Drucker. He's senior editor of Roll Call. We also have Keith Boykin and Jimmy Pepakoukas. Dave Drucker, there is a risk here, it seems to me. We've been talking about this, and I talk about it later with Senator Mike Lee. If the Republicans are seen as totally negative, obstructionist, and filibustering, that is going to do even more damage to them after the election, will it not?
Well, it could definitely hurt them. I think there's a sense, and I think Republicans understand this, Larry, that the American public, that voters can understand if Republicans on principle are not willing to go in certain directions and support certain pieces of legislation. But the idea of simply saying no without being willing to debate it and explain themselves, I think has grown a little bit tiresome. I think the country, after the serial crises that we dealt with over the last few years, is simply worn out. And I think that's why you've seen Republicans simply being a little bit more careful in where they choose to filibuster and how they choose to do it. Don't forget, the Rand Paul filibuster of the Obama drone policy was a resounding success. Right. So it's not like you can't do this, but it's how and where and what the subject matter is.
But Keith Boykin, I don't know whether it's President Obama's charm offensive or whether it's just sheer raw politics that the GOP has to play ball. They have to deal with these issues one by one on the merits. What's your take?
I think it's necessity and opportunism. If you look at the issue of immigration, for example, they lost 70% of the Latino vote in the last election, so of course they've got to compromise and do something. And Marco Rubio has to do something because he wants to be the 2016 standard bearer. If you look at gun control, 90% of the American people support background checks. Of course they can't just step in the way and say we're not even going to allow a vote. It makes them look really bad, and that's not good for the Republican brand.
Now, Jimmy P., I'll tell you what also is not good for the Republican brand, and that is that they sign on to the Obama budget, which basically strip away all the bells and whistles, says no budget cutting sequester, $1 trillion, take the caps away, and instead raise taxes by $1 trillion. Now, if the Republicans are sweetness and light and spring thaw on that, they're out of their minds.
I know David was talking about, we're going from crisis to crisis. Well, what this says to me is that we're going to have another little crisis. We're going to have a debt ceiling crisis. Because if the president thinks Republicans are going to go along with this, if they're going to go along with other sorts of tax increases, big tax increases for basically minor entitlement cuts, that's not going to happen. I mean, as we were saying before, it's the sequester. It's this spending austerity,
yes,
the right kind of austerity.
Yes,
that is helping this economy right now,
point.
bounced off by the Fed.
No,
we're not going to get rid of that, replace with tax.
Great point. And that's all it is, Dave Drucker. It's all it is. It's getting rid of the budget cutting sequester. It's raising taxes. I mean, Dave Drucker, the GOP wants to win in 2014. I get that. But if the GOP becomes Democrats, I don't think they're going to win in 2014.
Well, Larry, I think everybody should disabuse themselves with the idea that the Republicans are going to sign on to the Obama budget in any form as it's presented today, and that they're going to support tax increases of any kind. And if the president thinks that the fiscal cliff deal is a way forward for him to cut more deals with the Republicans, he's going to be disappointed. Not only is it bad for them politically, they just simply don't believe in it, and it will hurt them. It'll hurt them in the 2014 primaries and in the 2014 elections. And so it's something that's not going to happen. But I think what you will see with Republicans is a greater effort to try and show what they're for and to show a process that says we are doing something. It's just not what he wants, but it's something and we think it's better.
That puts Obama in a box.
Well, I think Obama is playing this the best he possibly can politically. I mean, he came out and said he's in favor of changing CPI for Social Security in his budget. He's in favor of means testing Medicare. He's got liberals outraged over these two positions. So he's put himself squarely in the middle, while the left and right look like they're the ones who are the obstructionists who aren't getting anything done. So from President Obama's perspective, he's right where he needs to be. The problem is he doesn't really think...
The approval ratings fall. Is that where he needs to be right now? What's going on?
Exactly. The problem is that nothing is being done because the Republicans aren't willing to compromise.
Yeah, but he's negotiating. Those call adjustments would start next year. See, all this Paul Ryan stuff reform is way down the road. Well, seniors are going to get hit next year if that change CPI goes into place. That is a revenue
that's a tax increase, but that doesn't count. That tax increase doesn't count. That's one for one.
Wait, the Republican, you can't have it both ways. You can't say you want cuts and you want to deal with entitlements, but then you're afraid to deal with them right now. President Obama deserves credit for the courage to actually put this on the table.
Minimum plan that does not change the long-term trajectory at all.
I'm just saying you need broader.
What are the Republicans going to compromise on?
But they're going to compromise. They're going to compromise on it.
It's not going to be tax increases because that's political suicide.
That's it. David
They were offered
Drucker,
premium
you
support.
win that round. You get the Nobel Prize. Thank you very much. Now, folks,
Thanks,
a
Larry.
key procedural vote on gun legislation did pass the Senate today by 68 to 31. That moves forward with the debate. We have Utah Senator Mike Lee, a strong man on the Second Amendment. He's threatened to filibuster the whole gun story. That's up next, Senator Mike Lee.